This is Positivologist Lynette Turner, and welcome to The Positivologist is in the House. Come on in, grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, your favorite beverage, and sit back and relax on your couch or your chair and join me. This is on living our lives from a positive position. And although we have challenges and issues and problems, we all do. It'd be great to say we were immune, but we're not. There's nothing to say that each and every day when we wake up, we can't decide what kind of an attitude we're going to tonight with my guest, who I call the King of Happiness. We have Lionel Keshian, who's also a dear friend. He's a founder of the Happiness Club, and we're going to talk all about the Happiness Club, and we're going to talk all.
Hi, Lynette. It's so great to be with you again. Thank you.
Yes, welcome to the show. I've been waiting for this time for us to have this dialogue. For starters, Lionel, I'm actually going to throw it over to you for a few minutes so you can just tell the viewers a little bit about Lionel Keshian and also tell them how they can reach you, and we'll do that again later in the show. Take it away.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much, Lynette. Yes, absolutely. A little bit about myself. Well, I'm a little unusual because I'm happy. And I'm happy in spite of what happens, and that's not to say that I don't think about things and wonder how they're going to turn out, but I've already realized that the less I allow the outer world to dictate how I should feel, not only am I better off, but I really create the best situations for myself and those around me by feeling that, by realizing that life happens regardless of what's happening. I could still choose my response. And this is very much like Viktor Frankl had written about and talked about in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Nazi concentration camp captive, and he found that even though he was in the worst place any human being could ever find themselves in, he actually experienced his own set of freedom, his own identity to, as you said earlier in the show, to allow him to have his attitude no matter what. And I think happiness comes down to focus. There's a lot lately on mindfulness and meditation, and this is just a matter of focus. So if we realize happiness is important and we value it and focus on it, frankly, very miraculous things happen. Actually, I believe, or have experienced, I should say, that the universe conspires to lift us up and bring us not only what we want and not only what we need, but more than we could ever really imagine.
And Lionel, what's really I've always found really amazing with you is you actually, walk the walk and talk the talk. I mean, you really live what you say. And I have to tell the viewers that we have a little bit of history, Lionel and I, because when I first moved to Connecticut 17 years ago now, can you believe how long ago it was? I'd only been here a few months, and a new friend had cut out this article out of the paper about this happiness club. And they were like, happiness club? Whoever heard of a happiness club? And I was like, when do they meet? Where are they? I wonder if there's room for me. And the meeting was the very next day, and I remember I emailed Lionel, I called Lionel and said, is there room? And you were like, oh, yes, come on down. And I remember at that time we were meeting in a restaurant, upstairs in a restaurant, and you had to walk up these stairs. And walking up the stairs, there were like happiness balloons and smiley faces. And I literally remember saying to myself, E.T., I'm home. E.T., I'm home. It just felt so wonderful and comfortable. And Lionel, you've just been amazing and a great friend to me ever since. So talk a little bit, Lionel, about your road to happiness. How did you come to be like this?
Well, I was always a reader and interested in psychology, spirituality, religion, and everything I think most people think about when they have the time. I commuted 4 hours a day, so I had a lot of time to think and read, and from New York to Connecticut. So what I discovered was happiness was very important. I actually self-discovered that through some work I had done on myself, and as a result of that, along with what I had been reading, I found one day actually December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1990, at around 5 o'clock.
That's
I realized
amazing. You know the exact moment.
well, right around that time, it was that day, I was happy. I was happy, and I realized I was happy. I said, wait a minute, this is great. And I didn't want to lose it, and I didn't really think I could carry it forward and keep it. But Lynette, it's been 25 years. It will be 25 years this December, and I have managed to not only stay happy, but to benefit myself from what happiness could do for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
and others, I might add.
Many others. So if someone said to you, you know, describe happiness, what would you say? How would you describe happiness?
You know, focus is a good word. I am focused on happiness. When I look at you, for me, looking at you is like looking into the eyes of happiness, because I know you, you're my friend, I love you. I think the work you do is incredible. It enriches my life. It enlarges my life. And I would probably say to you that the answer to that is when I'm happy, especially when I'm connected to somebody like you, for example, I am really working on the whole manifestation of love coming into my life, into something real. I see love in action because I know what you do, and I know who you are, and I know what you do as a teacher, and you know, as a positologist. These are very important things for this world. Mm-hmm. And you know, you do your share of it, and I do but I'm always doing what I think is good for me. It just turns out that it's also good for the world.
I know. Sometimes I joke with people and say, well, I'm positive and happy. It's kind of selfish in a way, because when you're not, you know, you just don't have any energy. You don't have any drive. You don't have any focus. If you're just you know, really spending all this time thinking about, you know, what's not working and what didn't happen right last year or last week. A lot of people spend the time in the past or in the future instead of like right here. And so, just as you said, I find every single day it's a decision. When I wake up every morning, I take the time to consciously think about living my day in a positive way. Even if I know it's going to be a crazy, hectic day, then I need to do it even more, you know, in order to get through the day and enjoy the experience of life.
Absolutely. And what you said is exactly what I have found to be true, that happiness is a decision. And once you make that decision, it really supports you in every moment, in every situation. And of course, what it does is support you in allowing you to be more clear-headed and balanced in making the right choices. And now you could see clearly what your choices are. So rather than saying, oh, I have a problem, I hate the problem, why does it always happen to me? Every day brings its own challenges. We now can focus on solutions, and that comes through our choices.
Right. So, Lina, what would you suggest to people? Because, you know, I still see, as happy as we are, and it's a growing number of people who are taking this attitude and this stand in their life. There's still, you know, there's a lot of sad people. There's a lot of negativity. And you know, it's understandable in a way. You know, the economy is still hard for some people if people haven't had a job, or if their relationships aren't working out, or they've had all these unexpected things happen, or even health challenges. You know, how can you help, you know, jumpstart somebody dealing with these sort of issues to have the kind of attitude that we've decided to have? And I think also often it can be connected to how we grew up, you know. So if you grew up in an environment that was always negative and not very good and happy, people tend to, you know, carry it with them. Although I've seen people break through that barrier, which is a wonderful thing. I was, you know, fairly lucky to be around fairly positive people, and I always joke and say I just wear people down now. They just get so tired of me being happy and positive, they just give up. They decide to at least act happy and positive around me. But I know people come to you. I know you also coach people, right? I mean, how do you help people get into this heart and head space of happiness?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing you mentioned this in what you just spoke about, is the past is the past. And if we learn to live in this moment, We have a tremendous amount of power in this moment, but if we're going to dwell in the past or think about the past, all that power is gone. We're not, it's almost like trying to run the computer we're on without being plugged in. If we're not in the now, we're just not in the flow. We're not plugged in. We're disconnected from the universe. So everything is going to be much more difficult. And our thinking is not going to be useful to us. It's going to be detrimental in every way. So basically, it all starts and stems from our thinking, how we think. But of course, it's what we decide and choose to focus on. I mean, you know, what you dwell on, you will manifest. You will draw towards you exactly what you're considering. You know, if you keep saying your life is bad, I'll give you an example. If you get up in the middle of the night, I found out a lot of people have trouble sleeping. And if you get up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and you say to yourself, I can't go back to sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep, that's an affirmation. Guess what? You can't sleep. Why don't you change your thought and words to, I can't stay up, I can't keep my eyes open, I am so tired, I can't stay up.
It's the power of our words. Our words are so incredibly powerful.
So happiness is not that difficult. The world thinks it may be, but it's actually very simple, and yet it's very profound. And I think it comes down to empowerment, empowering ourselves. And those who are happy, Lynette, like you are, and like I am, seek to uplift others.
Right, right. And I think it really can be contagious, right? I mean, if you have this energy about you, I've certainly seen people who were sort of on the negative side of things see the light, so to speak, and see how much richer and amazingly productive and rewarding their life can be. And again, I think too that because we all have issues and problems and challenges, I have a better time dealing with those issues and problems and challenges because of the attitude I have. I just know there's light at the end of the tunnel. I know I can decide, I can say that the glass is either half empty or half full. Well, why can't it be half full so then it can continue to, you know, to be fuller still? So I think the mission we're on is a really valid one and a really important one for us to be on.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the glass, Lynette, I think the glass is overflowing. That's what I think.
It is. So, Lionel, go ahead.
Sure. No, please.
I would like you to spend a little bit of time telling people about the amazing, the wonderful, the history of the Happiness Club.
Okay, I can make that brief. I was happy in 1990. I kept improving ways and understanding the happiness that I found for 9 years. And then I taught happiness at Sacred Heart University in 1999. And that might have been the very first time I think anybody might have taught happiness in a university. And of course today there are many professors and many classes and university courses on happiness, well-being, positive psychology has emerged. So and actually happiness has become a science since 1990. So a lot has transpired. We started our Happiness Club as a result of the classes at Sacred Heart. People wanted to continue. And I think that it's been a real transformation for me to see happiness come into full bloom, because in 1990 there were very few books on happiness, and I don't have to tell you how many books there are out there now.
As a matter of fact, if the viewers go to your website, right, you have a list of, is it like your favorite 200? Or I mean, I know there's a lot of...
Well, I have a favorite 20 that was almost 10 years, but yes, you can go on. And the website, I'm sorry, you asked me to mention it, it's happinessclub.com. happinessclub.com. And there's a free newsletter you can click on. You could find out how to start a happiness club. We have over 120 of them around the world. They're free.
I think that's worth repeating, Lionel. It started one happiness club in Fairfield, Connecticut. Now there's 120. Literally, like, tell people some places around the globe where these clubs are located.
Well, we just started one in England. Armenia has a happiness club in Armenia. India has some. I think it's phenomenal, and we have a lot in Connecticut. And the other thing that excites me is there is many universities that have started happiness clubs as well. So I think it's a great thing. Everybody should jump on the bandwagon, really.
I think it's a wonderful it's a drug in place of like Western medicine drug. Now I know there is a place for Western medicine drugs, but there's also a place for this natural high, this natural way of dealing with stress or dealing with depression. Have you found that to be the case?
Oh, most definitely. In fact, scientifically, I could share with you that I've spent quite a number of years now with a psychiatrist in Greenwich that's in practice. His name is Dr. John Tamarin, and he's a Harvard graduate. And he and I had done a lot of work together. He's very open to the understanding and the focus that we don't just need drugs, that therapy, talk therapy, happiness methods, skills, and practice can do wonders for people, even with incredibly drastic mental problems. As a matter of fact, I've been running a happiness club at Bridge House for almost 10 years now, which is an outpatient psychiatric facility. And really, another way to look at happiness, especially for people with mental challenges, is that it's a way to problem solve. It's a way to take what you might have looked at as a problem and realize it's just a challenge because you can handle it. You can find ways to deal with it. And that's the wonderful thing about happiness. It keeps you calm. It enables you to make a choice. And all of a sudden, poof, you've empowered yourself to deal with the situation. And the most important thing is you stopped being a victim.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think so many of us take on that victim role?
It could just be the evolutionary process. We've always looked at what's wrong here. Somebody's out to get me, and it was true when we were cavemen. We had to watch out for the saber-toothed tiger and the people from the other cave and things like that. There was some validity to worrying about what may happen in our lives. But now we don't really know how to respond anymore. We seem to react too much, overreact in a negative way. So it becomes a habit that we can't break. Our parents may have had it. We fall into it. We worry. We don't understand that we're doing ourselves a lot of harm, and we're affecting our health greatly.
Oh,
The stress level today is
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
high, and I really think, even at least for myself, quite often, if I get physically sick, that it's stress related, and
Yeah.
if I can decrease that stress and calm down my
Yes.
breathing and take it easy and not take things so personally, and not go 100 miles an hour, which is really challenging in this culture that we live in. It we Oh, you need that balance there. Um, I've read a lot about people who have been sick, who have literally, laughed or happyed themselves back to health. I mean, accounts of people in the hospital saying, you know what, I'm just going to watch I Love Lucy episodes. I'm just going to laugh and I'm going to smile, and I'm not going to focus on the pain or the negativity. And by their own accounts, they healed. They've healed.
Absolutely.
I think that's
Absolutely true.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. So Lionel, talk a
Yeah.
little bit, if you can,
That's how
about. Oh, go
powerful.
ahead. It is powerful.
Yeah, that's how powerful what you're saying is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The power of visualization, words, how we act towards other. You're talking about how people react and interact. It seems like we're in such a rush, and so often people are interacting in a negative way, like you push somebody, or so that when you're kind to somebody, they don't even know how to they don't even know how to react. They're so surprised, they're so
It's true.
stunned. And I mean, I love that. I love just you know, something happened at Happiness Club many years ago. I don't know if you remember this, but we were talking about the power of just smiling and engaging with somebody with a smile. And as you know, I travel a lot for my job, so I made this decision that I was going to, on the next flight, I was going to connect with as many people I could and smile at them and see if they would smile back. So I was sitting on the plane, maybe about halfway back on the plane, on the aisle, and every person who walked by, I tried to catch their eye. And if I could catch their eye, I smiled at them. Like 99% of the people re-engaged, and they smiled back. And I was just like, you know, we don't know what kind of an impact that might have on that person. We don't know what kind of day they've been having. We don't know the last time somebody took the time to look them in the eye and smile and let them know that they mattered, that you really saw them. So something as little as a smile, which is really a big thing, and it's a free thing, can be very engaging and make such an incredible difference to people. So I smile all the time, and I have people say to me, "Why are you smiling?" I mean, like I have to have a reason to smile. Just because I want to. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And you know, Lynette, you've really touched on one of the essential aspects of happiness, and that's connection. You know, when we're connected, we're more whole, we're more ourselves. We're more ourselves connected to somebody else. And so even a smile is a connection. Actually, again, with the computer analogy, once we unplug, once we disconnect, we're no longer connected to another person. So if we don't smile, if we don't find a way to connect with the other person, it's as good as them not being there, and we're not acknowledging them.
Right.
But the truth is, when we acknowledge another person and smile at them, we're actually doing a lot for ourselves. It's not all for them. It's really a lot. We're getting a lot out of that as an individual.
Right, right. And just the happiness you get from making that kind of a connection with someone else, or for some reason, I don't know what it is about me. I get really moved when I see people, and very happy when I see people doing things for other people. Like there's this show called Undercover Boss, where the boss goes undercover and his employees don't know it's him, and then through this journey he always connects with an employee who, you know, has a sick child, who doesn't have money, or doesn't have a car, or can't pay off their house. At the end of the show, he helps these employees. I am weeping every single time I see that show. I just start crying because I'm so happy to see people being kind to everyone else. And if we could just continue to encourage this wave of kindness, it would just make such a fundamental difference in the world we live in. And I truly think it would raise the energetic vibration of the world we live in, and just make this an even more amazing place to live, don't you think?
Oh, I absolutely agree. In fact, in talking about raising the vibration of the world, one of the things we have on our website that's really the only place you can get it for free is what I consider the best book on happiness ever written. And it's called Gateway to Happiness by Rabbi Zelig Pliskin. And it's available at happinessclub.com. If you go to the media section and you click on the books, you can download a 60-page free download of this book, which is an incredibly well-written, wonderful, encyclopedic-like book on happiness that you can, even if you just open it up and read a couple of lines or one paragraph, you would come away with such a treasure of knowledge that could help you for the rest of your life. So the tools are out there. People like Rabbi Pliskin want to give it to people to encourage them to lead better lives for their benefit. You know, there are so many wonderful people in this world, and of course the news will help us to focus on those who are less than perfect, who, you know, create lots of disturbances in the world. And I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said, you know, there's so many wonderful people in the world. And she said to me, yes, but the wonderful thing is getting to know some of those people. And that's what the Happiness Club has done for me. I've gotten to know some of the greatest people in the world.
Yeah.
Like you.
Well, and I've gotten to know you, which is great too. You know, over the years you've had such amazing guest speakers come and speak at the Happiness Club, and with just profound stories and experiences of how happiness have impacted their life. I'm just thinking now out loud Are there a few that really stick with you in terms of their stories that they've shared with others? I can remember people coming who had cancer and been very sick, and they just found light and love and happiness even through the distress they were dealing with.
Yes, I can think of one person right now, and I'll mention her name. Her name is Audrey Carlson, and Audrey lives up in the Hartford area. And about 12 years ago, Audrey's daughter, who was I think about 22 years old at the time, was murdered in her home by an ex-boyfriend who, snuck into the house, shot her with a gun. She was killed.
Oh,
Horrendous, terrible situation. And I can't. I'm telling you the story because for a mother, for parents to lose their child is one of the most tragically difficult things to deal with on earth. But instead of just being upset and angry about this encounter, Audrey ended up working very hard to understand life. A person that she ended up becoming friends with was Dr. Bernie Siegel, who he endorsed your book,
yeah,
and who, by the way, I do a radio show with, and I love that man.
he's
I think he's
wonderful.
done a lot for the world. He is.
Yeah.
But the other thing that Audrey's done is she's joined. She spent a long period of time learning happiness from Tal Ben-Shahar, the original professor at Harvard, who taught happiness there at Harvard some years ago and had the largest class ever in Harvard. But she did more than that. She started a happiness club in Hartford, and she has 100 people at every meeting once a month. So she's a person who has taken a very difficult situation that life has thrown at her and has absolutely created heaven on earth for so many people as a result of dealing with this in a way that benefits others and ultimately herself. So for me, that's an outstanding story.
Wow, that takes a lot of heart. Sometimes I think about the different characteristics of people who have decided to be happy, and one of them is compassion. I
Yes.
just find that happy people are really compassionate people, don't tend to be as judgmental as other people are. Just, try to just go with
Can I interrupt?
Please.
Can I interrupt you? You came up with a word, judgmental. It's a chapter in my book, How to Be Happy.
I was going to ask you to talk about
them,
your book, so please do, yes.
Okay, but here's a great one. If you want to learn how to be unhappy for those who want to remain unhappy, you must be judgmental, because if you could if whatever you judge will make you unhappy. So in order to be unhappy, you're judging something as bad. If you could learn to accept things and not judge them, you free yourself to the point where you're no longer unhappy. So that's a way out of unhappiness. And ultimately what I found, and it was pretty remarkable, these are experiential things. It isn't enough to talk about this. You have to do it, you have to experience it. When I stopped judging someone else about anything, I also found out I stopped judging myself for everything. And I became freer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I think about in terms of being happy is I think it helps you to be a more forgiving person too, because you're not so focused on, do I want to be right? Do I want to be happy? Happy. That's what I want to be. So
forgiveness is another chapter in the book.
Like mine.
By the time we're done, you're going to run. Yeah, you're going to run through all of them by the time we're done.
So, Lionel, talk about the book.
Well, basically, it starts off with understanding that to be happy, you must value it. You have to understand that there's value in happiness, or you'll never go after it. You'll never keep it. I mean, let me do something.
Okay.
Let me do something right now. All right, let me take out something and say, okay, would Would anybody like that? Everybody knows what that is, right?
$20 bill. Mine was
Right?
giving
Yeah,
money.
it's yours. It's yours. So now that everybody wants the money, even if I crinkled it up and threw it in the middle of the room and say, anybody want it? Yes, they'll take it. But that's because you value money. But happiness is currency, and if you don't value it, it's not coming into your life. Because you're going to walk past it. You're never that December 24th day. I valued what I experienced, and I kept it.
Right, right. Wow, what an amazing example for young people too, for children, right? If they have their parents teach them the importance of valuing happiness from a young age, and then they keep that with them as they grow up. What an amazing group of young people turned adults we have if you do that.
Yes, and Lynette, it would be my sincerest wish that the educational system would introduce, it's beginning to, but would introduce more of happiness work into the school system for kids. It really is dealing with emotional intelligence, emotional competence, emotional well-being, and ultimately children today are not given the means to understand the problems that life can, when you lose a parent, we're not teaching kids how to deal with that, how to understand what we can do within ourselves. Ultimately in life we can never change the outer world. When things happen, especially when they're bad, they're already happened and they're done. So learning to accept things that we can't change is a big way to not only move on, but to empower ourselves to become happy. And that's why I gave the example of Audrey Carlson and her daughter, because she could have been stuck in the past and not only never improved for her own well-being, but never improved for all of society. She's benefiting all of society. And another reason that I thought she's brilliant is because she has another younger daughter, and at the time she thought about it and she said, the person who murdered my child will end up murdering me and my family if I don't stop thinking negatively about this and do something powerful and positive to enable myself to love my daughter, to get past this. It's never forgotten.
Right.
And forgiveness is part of it, but it's about moving on and realizing that you can make a great life no matter what. And
we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so we really want to make the most of every day. You don't want to be at the end of your life sort of looking over your shoulder and go, I wish I'd have been nicer to that person. Exactly. I wish I would have done. You just don't know about tomorrow. You just know about tomorrow.
It's true. And I also think, Lynette, from a spiritual perspective, that when we're happier, we're drawing more good things into our lives. That we're drawing good people. Maybe it was no accident you walked in in one of those very first meetings we had. We were drawn to each other.
The synchronicity. I believe in synchronicity. Everything happens for a reason. Even if we can't figure it out at the moment, even if it seems like not the greatest thing, it was the greatest thing.
Exactly.
I'm so happy that we had that encounter so many years ago. But you touched on something that's dear to my heart, and that's the young people. It would be great to have some kind of program throughout all the school system. I have this vision of giving a copy of my positivity book to a high school and junior high in every state. That's what I want to do. I need to find the mechanism or the person or somehow to do it, but I really want to do that because I think it's so powerful and so important and can really help these young people move forward in their lives in a way that's going to help them be just extremely happy and positive and contributors, positive, good contributors, despite what's going on. Despite I'm kind of a news junkie. I always like to know what's going on, but sometimes I have to literally say, this is a no news week. I cannot because it's never good news. If it is good news, it's one tiny little thing at the very end of the newscast. I know on the internet they have Positivity Network or whatever. That's what I want. That's what Conscious Evolution Media Network is like to me. But we need more of that. We need more of that energy.
You know, Lynette, you remind me that if somebody wanted to get over being unhappy or depressed, the couple of ways to do it. One good way is to think about others. Go do something for someone else, like you mentioned,
Yes. Yes.
distributing these books to kids in school. You could see how that makes you feel. It makes you feel
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So if people stop thinking about themselves just for a moment, think about somebody else, all of a sudden, uh, the transformation begins. The other great way to do it, and another chapter in the book, is gratitude. Gratitude, and I've heard you
Huge.
talk about gratitude.
Huge. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's always something to be grateful for. If you woke up this
yeah,
morning, there's something to be grateful for. You know,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I sometimes share a story of like if someone they want a new big fancy car and they're really bummed because the Lexus they have now is getting kind of old. So I find another. And I was like, well, if you think back, there's somebody out there who has a used car that they're lucky if it even starts every day. And then if you look back even further, there's somebody who doesn't have a used car. They have to use public transportation to get anywhere that they want to go. And if you think back even further, there's someone who doesn't even have money for the bus. They have to walk everywhere they have to go. There's so much we can be grateful for if we just let ourselves be in the moment of that instead of, consistently looking for the bigger and the better and just appreciate, be grateful for where you are and what you have.
It's so true and such good advice. And gratitude is interesting because you really can't be grateful for something and unhappy at the same time. As soon as you're grateful, unhappiness vanishes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And you can find examples like, you're in a rush to get someplace and you get on I-95 and the traffic is just stopped and you're not moving at all. And you see people around you like flailing their hands and screaming out loud. And if you just go, you know what? The universe has just given me this little piece of time to be still. And I'm only supposed to go 5 miles an hour. And wow, look at that bird that just flew over that I wouldn't have seen if I had been rushing through.
Yeah.
Everything can be a gift if we let it be a gift. Everything can have that gem of understanding and happiness and positivity in it if we let it. And then the other thing about happiness too is when we do fall into that dark hole, which sometimes you do, something just goes so wrong, and just knowing you pull yourself back, you fall down, you just keep getting back up. I don't stay up here all the time. People might think 24 hours a day, but I have my moments of trying to figure it all out, and I go there, but I just don't stay there. I come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another reason to practice happiness, because if you could start doing it a few times, even if you faked it till you make it, then your body, your mind will see how it fits, see how it feels, and when you're there. If you don't try, some people that are unhappy are never happy about anything.
Right.
And that's not healthy.
Right. And the thing is too, we can't force someone to be happy or make them be happy.
Sure.
Sometimes, I know a handful of people that I just think they like to be miserable. I don't know why they like to be miserable, but it's like whatever the situation, they can just find the dark cloud. And I'm always, finding the bright cloud. I was talking just the other day to somebody about how when we make assumptions. I was talking about Dami Gabruez's book, The Four Assumptions.
Sure.
And the Four Agreements. The book is the Four Agreements, and one of them is not to make any assumptions, and that we often make assumptions. And people tend to make assumptions in the worst possible direction. They always assume the worst. I don't understand. Why can't we just as easily? I always assume the best. That doesn't mean it's always going to happen, but as you said earlier, I think that's the energy we put out into the universe, and it's more apt to come back. But for 9 times out of 10, people just go to the worst case scenario, and I don't go there. I don't get it.
Well, yeah. Well, you were talking about being stuck in traffic. I think you mentioned I-95, I believe.
Yep.
Today, I-95 was completely black. It was closed. It was just nobody was moving.
I heard there was a bad accident.
Yeah, there was somebody died. A trucker died,
Oh.
and so US 1, the post road was completely bumper to bumper, and I was traveling on on an even further back road, and that was bumper to bumper. But I don't know if anybody realized that it was 59 degrees out, beautiful.
Right.
And fortunately, I had time. I wasn't in a rush, and it didn't bother me. Of course, I think the way that I have learned to be happy and not to try to control every last thing that I can't control anyway, is instead of wanting something to be the way it may not be, is to have a preference. So I would prefer to be able to get in the car and get to where I'm going without taking an extra hour to get there, but it's just a preference. As soon as I have to have it and it's a demand, we're going to be unhappy.
And the stress level goes up. And
yeah, so not only are you going to not get there any faster, you're going to get there stressed out, your blood pressure will be higher, your health will be worse. And I just don't understand why we're doing this to ourselves. We really are doing it to ourselves.
Right, because we have the choice. As you said, we have the choice. Yeah. So, Lionel, I happen to know that not so long ago you received a prestigious award for the work you do in the happiness field. Can you tell us about that award?
Well, thank you. Yes, I went to Stanford University in California, and I was among a number of people that were indoctrinated into the Happiness Hall of Fame. So it's not the Baseball Hall of Fame. And in fact, Dr. Deepak Chopra was just put in. So we've got great company together there.
That's some pretty good company that he's in.
Yeah, and many others. Believe me, And I might also add, I think I'm the only non-doctor, non-psychologist in the group, so that's wonderful in itself,
Yeah,
so,
congratulations on that, Lionel. That's great. It's really well deserved. That's for sure. I've seen a lot of people's lives change from, following your lead. Lionel, can you talk a little bit about positive psychology? I mean, we always hear this phrase, positive psychology.
Sure.
I know you've studied it. You know a lot about it. I know there's degrees in it now. Can you tell the viewers a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me that the old framework of psychology has changed. The old way of looking at the patient as, okay, what's wrong with you, and diagnosing them with neuroses and psychosis and illness, and everything is a matter of an illness or something wrong. And all of a sudden, positive psychology came along thanks to Dr. Martin Seligman, who really is the father of positive psychology, and doing wonderful work in the world. Right at, I think it was 1998, that just emerged into reality. And what he did is he started teaching courses to students. They got a Master of Applied Positive Psychology, and a couple of those first-time students that came out of this course started happiness clubs. So I was, and that's how I found out about positive psychology, by the way. I didn't know anything about it, but I had an inside track from then on. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful that psychology now looks at what's right with you, what your strengths are, rather than what the heck is wrong with you. It's just wonderful. And a lot is being done with positive psychology to make a very positive difference in the world. This is what we've needed, and the change is now here. And along with that, I want to add that when I first started, even when I was teaching happiness at Sacred Heart in 1999, it wasn't until about 2004 that happiness was proclaimed a science. So everything changed. When you first walked into the Happiness Club, and other people said, what's going on here? Nobody had a clue of what that was, but now it's science, so it's okay.
Right. Well, you kind of led the way there, though, Lionel.
Well, I was really part of it.
Yeah. Well, and I know not only do you host the Happiness Club every month, but you also go around to a lot of places to talk about happiness. And I know it's a lot of different groups and organizations, maybe some that people might not, so some of the places that you go, because I know you go all over the place.
Yeah, I'll go anywhere. I mean, I've talked to Rotary and Lions, anybody, anywhere. And you know what? I'll talk to anybody in the street, and I love talking about this stuff. So the groups are wonderful, churches, synagogues, you name it. but I think, well, the other thing I want to mention is I wrote a column for 11 years in the local newspaper, the Be Happy Zone. That's available on a website. You can see all of those articles on the website. I have a weekly TV show that runs on cable, and I do the radio show Mind Health Matters with Dr. Bernie Siegel. So I just continue. I'm very fortunate to have all these outlets in expressing myself. And really, I'm doing it for me. I love talking about this. There's nothing I love more than eating and talking about happiness.
And doing it together is really fun too. Eating and talking about.
Yes.
As we sometimes do after the Happiness
Yes.
Club meetings. Yeah, yeah.
Well, exactly. In fact, that's part of it. You know, we have our Happiness Club meeting, and many people will come out, as you have joined us, and come out and have a bite to eat or something to drink. But the wonderful thing about that after hours gathering is its further connection, and that's what's essential to understanding and living happiness. Because for those people who aren't fortunate enough to be happy, it's catchable. It's you can be infected with it by being around people like you and other people who could spread that illness to others.
Right. So, Lionel, have you ever gone to speak at some particular place and there's been skeptics in the room? People who were just like not so sure.
Not recently. It was true years ago, because I think people's understanding of happiness was very limited. But today, with all the books and all the and everywhere you turn now, even the commercials are talking about all the companies are using happiness as a ploy to get you to use their product. From chocolate companies to drug companies, they're all talking about happiness.
As we talk about this, I have this vision of some kind of a happiness convention. I know there's a positivity convention, but this happiness convention where people come together and maybe we're singing happy songs and sharing happy poetry and doing happy dancing, and that sounds like it would be a lot of fun.
It would be. Well, actually, the very first World Congress for Happiness, I attended that in Philadelphia. It was put on by Positive Psychology. So it's begun. Let me give you another one. March 20th, it's the first day of spring. We just passed that.
Mm-hmm.
That is now the United Nations International Day of Happiness. So worldwide, we now have an International Happiness Day. And 3 years ago, the United Nations brought that into existence.
It's happening, Lionel. We can only hope that 5-10 years from now, the wave will be moving even faster to get people on this very important bandwagon. Are there any particular? You mentioned one book, and of course your book is another one. Books that you recommend for people? First, I have to just tell people again that you have to go to this website. It has so much. It has so much free information on there. There's these wonderful articles that Lionel has written. There's it tells about all the different happiness clubs going on all around the world, and it's an incredible resource for people. So if you're interested in happiness, whether you're already happy or you want to be happy, which is also an important point, because we've had people come to the Happiness Club who were literally unhappy people, and they've said, well, I came because my wife is happy and I'm trying to figure it out. I just don't understand this whole happiness thing, so I want to come and see what's going on. We've had widows or widowers clubs come together who have said, we've lost our partners, but we know that our partners would want us to have rich and fulfilling lives as we move forward, so we want to come and be in the energy of, I just get chills thinking about that, and the energy of all these wonderful people. So wonderful resource, both the Happiness Club and all the other information that you can get off of the website. But I know you do read. You read a lot. You read a lot of books. You're very knowledgeable. So, are there any particular books you would recommend, or quotes that come to mind, or just some tips for people?
Yeah, I know I have a lot listed on. Like my 20 best is on my. But that was 10 years ago, even before you wrote your book. But that's a good start for people. I think Tal Ben-Shahar has done a lot of good work lately. Sean Achor, The Happiness Advantage, excellent books. both authors and professors really know the subject personally. They experience it, they understand it, and they teach it and express it very well. So we're very, and in fact, even Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about happiness. Dr. Deepak Chopra talks about. He wrote a very good book on happiness. He really did. Back a few years ago, which I found intriguing, because I interviewed Dr. Deepak Chopra on a radio show that I had back in 1993. 1993, and he was just getting started, and I would talk to him about happiness, and his understanding of it has come so far from those days that I'm really, and I'm so, all I could say is that I'm glad that so many of the world teachers, and then Oprah Winfrey, for example, she's another person who really understands these concepts and spreads it. Also, I love the work of what's his name? I'm having trouble remembering him, but he was on Oprah. He's written a lot of books on spirituality, and I forgot his name.
Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle, thank you. One of my favorite authors, by the way. So you can see how much I try to practice these. Everything is extemporaneous with me, because if I concentrate on one thing, and that's that I'm with Lynette Turner, what could ever go wrong? And that's what I focus on. I focus on now. And if I forget something, it doesn't hurt me, because I'm not trying, to prove anything to anybody. I'm just a regular person that maybe isn't so regular, because I tried being unhappy, and I could not stay there. Well, because what happens is you end up building your life in a direction you want it to go, and all of a sudden you find that the walls are people that want to support you no matter what you're doing. Right. I mean, they're there for you. The emails, even the world, television stations want to learn more about happiness. People want to learn more. So I was a businessman, and I'm retired now, but I'm very fortunate that not only have I been happy for all these years, but I can continue to spread this kind of work and understanding and meaning to others. Because one day when I'm not around, I think it would be wonderful for people to benefit from this kind of knowledge, because ultimately I really feel that the world can even attain much more peace, because ultimately peace is within the individual. Without happiness, there really can't be peace within the individual.
Right.
So that's an essential ingredient.
I remember some years ago, there was a gathering at the mall in Washington, D.C., the big mall area, and I guess thousands of people came, and they sat, and they were literally meditating and generating positive, happy images and thoughts, and the crime rate went down during the period of time they were doing this.
I think you're referring to the meditation group that was doing that all over the country. Transcendental Meditation was doing that back in the 80s, and they would measurably affect the crime rate in the area they were doing that. So there is something to the energy that we create.
Yeah.
And I think that one could be content within oneself. Like I'm content all the time. But for me, happiness is when I'm connected to you, and somehow there's an energy flow back and forth. To me, that's the generation of happiness together. Mm-hmm. I think alone contentment is being at peace. But yes, I'm at peace now. But you got me all riled up. I'm feeling great, and I'm feeling energy, and I'm feeling like I want to share that with you and everyone else who's listening. So that's the passion that flows
Yeah.
from happiness.
Yeah, yeah, and hopefully more people will get on the bandwagon. You know, sometimes if I'm in New York in the city, I'm walking, and I love people watching. And sometimes you'll see somebody walking down the street, and their shoulders are back, and they're smiling. They might be singing to themselves, and I'm like, that is so awesome. But you can see people looking at that person, sort of like, you know, what's wrong with
Exactly.
that? What's wrong with them? You know, what are they happy about? Why are they smiling? That's one of
You
my
know,
favorite ones is when people ask me why I'm smiling.
Lynette, you hit on another way to be happy, and that's not to really care about what other people think of you.
Right. Right. It's nobody. It's not your business what anybody else thinks of you. That's like a
Exactly.
big thing to remember. It's nobody's business. You know. Don't worry about
Exactly.
it.
Right. Right. And that way, happiness is freedom. And the more we could free ourselves, because I think that's what spirituality is feeling free, eliminating the burdens of, imprisonment. Because unhappiness is, you know, as Eckhart Tolle says, unhappiness is a form of suffering. And, I know we call it the Happiness Club, but we could call it the Let's Stop the Suffering Club.
We could, and I have to say from experience that the moment you walk in the room, if you've had any stress or distress, it just literally just melts away because of the energy of your smile every time we walk in, and all the other people, other than like-minded people, or those who want to be like-minded people that have come into the room to share the space and time and energy with each other. And love. It's all about love. We can live our life in the energy of fear and the energy of love. And when we're happy and positive, we're
It's true.
living it in the energy of love.
It's true. Lynette, one time a woman came in who'd been at other meetings and, occasionally came. And she came and, we gave each other a hug. And she told me she had just found her brother the day before dead in her apartment. And she said, and the funeral is the next day. So I just said to her, why are you here? I don't know why I said that. She said, I
Yeah.
just had to do something for myself. I had to come just to give myself some time. At the end of that meeting, she came up to me and she said that was the best place she could ever have chosen to be. It did so much for her. And that's how I realized that what was
Right.
I even saying to her, like, I was shocked by what she told me.
Right.
But
Well, that tells you,
she
Lionel,
was
the
benefiting.
power of what you offer, the power
Yeah.
of what you do,
Yeah.
and the power of the energy of happiness. And on that note, can you believe our hour is up?
No.
Lionel, I love you dearly. Tell people one more time how they can reach you.
Well, I love you too, Lynette, and you know that, and I think you're great. I wish there were more people like you, but for now, I'll be happy with having you in my life. Happinessclub.com, and it's free website. I want to add one more thing, Lynette. Even though I was in business, everything I do, I never do for money. It's all free. I think that's important to say because that's how much I think the meaningfulness of the work that's being done and how important that is for other people, because happiness isn't just a good idea. It could save people's lives. It's very important, and it could really make one of the biggest differences in the world, one of the most positive differences we could ever see. And it's free. It's
And it's
available.
free. I agree 100%. Thank you so much, Lionel. Adore you. And I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight on The Positivologist is in the House. I want to remind you it's all about bliss, BLISS. Believe life is something special because it is, and so are you. Check me out at www.positivebliss.com, and I'll see you again next time right here on The Positivologist is in the House. Namaste.